All right, let's dive in. We're going deep into blockchain today, but not just Bitcoin. We're going way beyond that. You sent over some really interesting articles about all sorts of things like digital IDs and tokenized assets, even smart gadgets. It's going to be a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's amazing to see just how much is happening with blockchain technology.
Yeah,
A lot of people hear blockchain and they just think cryptocurrency. But these articles you sent, they really show just how much more there is to it.
for sure. Okay, so you sent in this article about Buenos Aires. They're launching a new digital ID system. It's called Quark ED. And get this, it uses zero-knowledge proofs to protect people's privacy. I got to know, how does that even work?
Well, this is a perfect example of how blockchain can be used in a way that has a real impact on people's lives. With zero-knowledge proofs, you can basically prove something without revealing the information itself. It's like, imagine applying for a loan online. You can prove to the lender that you have enough income, but you don't have to show them your exact salary or bank statements.
Whoa, okay, so that's a pretty big deal for privacy. How does that actually work, though? Like, how's it playing out in Buenos Aires with this Quark ED thing?
So residents in Buenos Aires, they can use Quirky to prove things like their age or their address when they're accessing city services. They don't have to share, unnecessary personal data. And it all runs on the Ethereum blockchain, which is really secure.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The article said over 3.6 million residents already have access to it, and they're even thinking about taking it nationwide in Argentina.
Right. Exactly. And it really shows how blockchain can actually improve government services and make them more efficient, and at the same time give individuals more control over their own data. It's really interesting to see it happening on such a large scale already.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second. You also sent in some articles about tokenization of everything. Basically, you're taking things from the real world, like real estate or even artwork, and turning them into digital tokens on a blockchain.
Yeah, I think tokenization has the potential to revolutionize, really revolutionize the way we think about assets, like how we own them, how we invest in them. It creates all these new levels of liquidity and accessibility that we just haven't seen before.
One article that really caught my eye talked about how this could actually make it easier for people to buy homes, especially for younger generations that are really struggling with affordability these days.
Right, and that's really important because traditionally buying real estate has required, a huge upfront investment, kind of shuts a lot of people out, especially if they don't have that kind of money. But with tokenization, you can actually fractionalize ownership. You can invest in much smaller portions of a property.
Okay, so instead of needing like hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a house, you could potentially just invest in a fraction of that house for a much smaller amount. It's kind of a game changer.
It is. It opens up investing to a much wider range of people. You don't need to be some, accredited investor or have millions of dollars. It really democratizes investment in a way we've never seen before.
Now, there's this whole concept of, what was it, programmable finance that keeps coming up in these articles. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, to be honest. Can you break it down for me? Explain it like I'm 5.
Sure. Well, with programmable finance, the idea is that transactions are automated through these things called smart contracts. So, for example, you could imagine setting up automatic dividend payments on investments, or you could have escrow services built right into the transaction process. You don't have to wait around for a middleman to do everything manually.
So basically, it's like you're automating trust.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, are there any downsides to this? What if a smart contract has a bug or, something goes wrong?
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern. Just like any other software, smart contracts can have errors or vulnerabilities. So, robust security measures, really thorough auditing are absolutely crucial in the world of programmable finance.
All right, so we've talked about digital IDs, tokenized assets, and now even programmable finance. What else did you send me?
Well, there was this really interesting article about how blockchain is actually starting to show up in everyday gadgets. We're talking things like smart homes, fitness trackers, all sorts of
Oh,
things.
yeah, that's the one I was really curious about. I wear a fitness tracker every day. It never occurred to me that blockchain could play a role in something like that. How does that work?
Okay, so think about all the data that your fitness tracker collects. Your heart rate, your sleep patterns, even location data. It's a lot of personal information. And normally that information is stored on these, centralized servers. But with blockchain, you can decentralize data storage. You have more control over who can see it, who has access to it.
Okay, so basically, blockchain acts as this kind of shield to protect your data from, like, misuse or from being hacked.
Yeah.
But how does that actually play out in the real world?
Well, let's say, take your fitness tracker as an example. If all that data was stored on a blockchain instead of on a company's servers, you could decide who has access. You could decide which healthcare providers or researchers can see your information. You become the gatekeeper.
Wow, that's really empowering. I like the idea of having more control over my data, especially when it comes to something as personal as my health.
Yeah. And it goes beyond just individual empowerment, too. Imagine a healthcare system where, like, all patient records are stored securely on a blockchain. Doctors could access your medical history, with your permission, of course, but it would mean more seamless transitions between providers and, less risk of errors or miscommunication.
This tech could really transform entire industries. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. And the thing is, these applications are already happening. This isn't just some theoretical future we're talking about.
It's incredible how quickly it's all evolving.
hmm
Speaking of evolution, one of the articles you sent was about institutional DeFi. And apparently, public blockchains are a big part of this whole thing. What's that all about?
Sure. So DeFi, short for decentralized finance, is essentially trying to, recreate traditional financial services. Lending, borrowing, trading, all that. But it's all happening on a decentralized platform. And public blockchains are a huge part of making that vision a reality.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Instead of going through banks, we'd be using blockchain-based platforms to manage our finances.
That's the basic idea, yeah. And by cutting out those middlemen, DeFi can potentially make finance more accessible, transparent, and efficient. Imagine getting a loan directly from another person through this, like, super secure blockchain platform. No more bank fees or waiting for paperwork to be processed.
Okay, now that's something I could get behind. But what's this institutional DeFi thing all about? Are banks going to be completely replaced by blockchains?
I don't think it's about completely replacing institutions, not necessarily. It's more like, we're seeing a kind of convergence between the old and the new. The article mentioned that the tokenized asset market, it's projected to reach $16 trillion by 2030. And a lot of that growth is going to come from institutional adoption.
Wow, 16 trillion. That's a mind-boggling number. So institutions are starting to see the potential of blockchain and DeFi then?
They are. Public blockchains offer some really big advantages for institutional DeFi. They're transparent, so every transaction is recorded on an immutable ledger. They're interoperable, so different platforms can actually connect and work together seamlessly. And they're much more secure, so there's less risk of fraud or cyber attacks.
So we're talking about a financial system that's more secure, more transparent, more interconnected,
Yeah.
and it's all powered by blockchain.
Yeah. It's definitely a fascinating area of development, Lots of potential there.
Before we get too carried away, though, can we just break down those benefits that public blockchains bring to institutional DeFi, just to make sure everyone's on the same page?
Sure. Well, one of the biggest benefits is transparency. With every transaction being recorded on a public blockchain, there's this permanent, auditable trail. So it's much easier to track assets, monitor activity, and identify potential issues.
So it's almost like a public record of every financial transaction. It could really help to reduce fraud and hold people accountable.
Exactly. And then there's interoperability. So different blockchain platforms can actually connect and interact with each other, which makes the whole financial ecosystem much more seamless and efficient.
That's a big improvement over the current system where everything feels so siloed.
Right. And finally, there's the enhanced security that we talked about. Blockchain technology is inherently secure, which makes it much harder for people to, manipulate or tamper with transactions.
Okay, so we've got transparency, interoperability, and security. All great things. But what does this actually mean for the average person? How will this affect us in our daily lives?
That's a great question, and one that we'll actually be exploring a bit more in the next part of our deep dive. So we were talking about this whole institutional DeFi thing and how public blockchains are really starting to change the game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about. Like, the whole financial system as we know it could be totally different because of this technology. It really feels like, we're at a turning point.
It really is a paradigm shift. I mean, as more and more institutions start using public blockchains, I think we're going to see a ton of innovation and disruption in the financial industry.
So what does all this mean for, regular people? Like, are we all going to be trading these tokenized assets and using DeFi platforms in the near future?
Well, even though institutional adoption is definitely leading the way right now, the benefits of DeFi, things like transparency and accessibility and efficiency, they apply to everyone. It's not just for the big institutions.
One of the articles talked about this idea of programmability. Like, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Mm.
On the one hand, it can streamline all these processes and cut out the middleman, which is great, but it also raises questions about, control and what happens if something goes wrong.
You're absolutely right. Programmability is powerful, but we have to be really thoughtful about the implications. I mean, if a smart contract isn't coded properly or if there's a vulnerability, it could have a ripple effect on the entire system.
Right. Like one small mistake could trigger this domino effect. It kind of makes you realize just how careful we need to be with this technology.
Exactly. Robust security measures and really thorough auditing are absolutely essential. There's no room for cutting corners when it comes to security in this space.
It also seems like education and awareness are going to be key. I mean, there's still so much confusion about blockchain. People need to really understand the potential benefits and the risks before they jump in.
Absolutely. We have to do a better job of demystifying this technology and helping people understand how it works. The more informed everyone is, the better decisions they can make about how to use blockchain and how to engage with it.
Reading through these articles, it really hit me just how broad the potential impact of blockchain is. We're not just talking about finance or technology here. It feels like it could affect almost every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the potential applications for blockchain are pretty much limitless. We've talked about digital IDs and tokenized assets and smart gadgets and DeFi, but it goes way beyond that.
So what other areas do you think blockchain could disrupt or transform in the next few years?
Well, supply chain management is one that comes to mind immediately. Blockchain's ability to track and verify the movement of goods, that could completely revolutionize how products are sourced and manufactured and distributed around the world.
Yeah, I could see how that would be incredibly beneficial. More transparent, more efficient supply chains. What else?
Another really interesting area is voting and elections. I mean, imagine blockchain-based voting systems that could increase security and transparency and really build trust in the process.
Especially with all the concerns we've been hearing about election integrity and voter fraud, it feels like this could be a really timely solution.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that blockchain is immutable and tamper-proof, that makes it a really promising way to create a more secure and trustworthy voting process. I think it could address a lot of the concerns people have.
It's amazing to think about all the possibilities. But like any new technology, especially one this disruptive, I'm sure there are going to be challenges. What do you think are the biggest hurdles to widespread blockchain adoption?
Well, scalability is a big one. A lot of the current blockchain platforms just can't handle the kind of transaction volume we need for mass adoption. It can create bottlenecks and slow things down.
So it's about figuring out how to make the technology more efficient, able to handle more and more transactions as more people and institutions start using it.
Exactly. And, we touched on this earlier, but regulation is another big hurdle. We need clear and consistent regulations that encourage innovation, but also protect investors and make sure the financial system is stable.
It feels like we're at this critical point. Blockchain has the potential to change so much, but there are some real challenges we need to address. Where do you think we're headed in the next few years?
Honestly, I think we're about to enter this period of just massive innovation and experimentation. We're going to see new platforms emerge, existing platforms evolve, and a growing number of real-world applications in every industry you can imagine. It's going to be an exciting time to watch it all unfold.
It definitely is an exciting time to be paying attention to this tech. And like you said earlier, I think the question now isn't if blockchain is going to be adopted, but how quickly.
You got it. And as all this unfolds, it's important to keep in mind that blockchain isn't just about the technology itself, it's about people. It's about empowering individuals, creating a fairer financial system, and building a more transparent world.
Those are some pretty worthy goals.
For sure. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive for today.
So we're back. And we've really covered a lot of ground today. All these different ways that blockchain is being used. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, from those digital IDs in Buenos Aires to tokenized real estate, even blockchain and fitness trackers, it really seems like there's no limit to how this technology could be used.
What I keep thinking about is that it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the people using it. It's about giving individuals more control, building trust, creating a more level playing field.
Absolutely. I mean, at its core, blockchain is really about empowering people and making things better, making the world a better place.
So as we move forward with all of, into this new world of blockchain, it's important to keep that human element front and center. We have to remember that technology is just a tool.
Yeah, it's on us to use it the right way, responsibly, ethically.
Okay, so after exploring all these different applications of blockchain. What do you think is the biggest takeaway from our deep dive?
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that blockchain isn't just some niche technology anymore. It's a powerful force that's already changing the world, changing the way things work.
And it's not just about cryptocurrency anymore. I mean, blockchain is affecting things way beyond finance. There's so much potential to revolutionize all kinds of industries, even our everyday lives.
Exactly. Whether it's making things more private and secure, or opening up new economic opportunities, or just creating more transparency and trust, blockchain is opening up so many possibilities.
So where do we go from here? What should people be thinking about as they continue to learn about blockchain?
Well, here's something to think about. What totally unexpected applications of blockchain might pop up in the future, and what kind of impact could they have on society?
Hmm, that's a good question. I mean, maybe we'll see blockchain used to fight climate change, or maybe it'll help ensure everyone has equal access to education or healthcare.
The possibilities really are endless, and the most exciting thing is we're just getting started. We're barely scratching the surface of what blockchain can do.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of blockchain.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you learned something new. Keep exploring, stay curious, and don't stop asking questions.
And remember, the future is decentralized.
Thanks for listening.